In this special video, I'm going to show you 8 types of people we shouldn't help. You will be surprised with the last one. But before we start, I want you to pay close attention to this story because it will be very important for you to understand the great lesson of this video. Once upon a time, there was a farmer named Peter who lived in a small village. Peter was known for his kindness and was always willing to help others. One day, he found a snake caught in a trap in his field. Although it was dangerous, Peter felt compassion for the snake and decided to free it. Peter cared for the snake, feeding it and giving it a safe place to recover. However, as soon as the snake felt better, it bit Peter and slithered away. Hurt and surprised, Peter realized that the snake's nature was to bite, no matter how much help he received. This story teaches us that some people, like the snake, do not change their nature. Sometimes, in our desire to help, we can ignore the signs and end up hurt. It is crucial to know who we are helping and understand that not everyone will value or appreciate our efforts. Imagine your energy is like a battery. Some people charge it, while others drain it faster than a phone with 100 apps open. Does it sound familiar to you? Well, let's explore these energy vampires and why it is crucial to recognize them. Before we dive into the first type of person, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the bell to stay updated. Let's get started. Number 1. The ingrates. Have you ever encountered someone who seems to have a black hole for a heart? Those people who, no matter how much you give them, always want more and are never satisfied. Imagine that you are in a restaurant enjoying a delicious dinner with friends. Suddenly, you hear someone complaining loudly about the food, the service, even the color of the napkins. Yes, you guessed it. It's the professional ingrate in action. But why do some people seem to be perpetually dissatisfied? Psychology has some interesting answers. According to a study conducted by the University of California, people with low self-esteem tend to be less grateful. It's as if they have a filter that only lets the negative through, blocking all the good that life offers them. Now, we're not saying that you should cut ties with every person who forgets to say thank you, but it is important to recognize when someone is constantly abusing your kindness. As famous businessman Richard Branson once said, "Treat your employees the way you want them to treat your best customers." We could extend this advice to all our relationships. Think of gratitude like a plant. It needs to be watered and cared for to grow. If you are constantly giving water, your time, energy, and resources to a plant that never blooms, it may be time to ask yourself if you are growing in the wrong garden. But be careful. Let's not confuse ingratitude with constructive honesty. Your friend who tells you that you have spinach in your teeth before an important meeting is not ungrateful. He is a hero without a cape. The difference is in the intention and the pattern of behavior. A fascinating study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed that grateful people are not only happier, but they also have stronger, longer-lasting relationships. It's as if gratitude is the invisible glue that holds our social connections together. Now, what do we do with these people? The answer is not simple, but we can take some lessons from positive psychology. Martin Seligman, considered the father of this branch of psychology, suggests that cultivating gratitude not only benefits those who receive it, but also those who practice it. So instead of getting frustrated with the ungrateful, we could see them as an opportunity to strengthen our own ability to appreciate the good in life. It's like going to the gym, but for our gratitude muscle. Of course, let's not confuse being grateful with being a bottomless bag. Setting healthy boundaries is just as important as being generous. As writer Brené Brown once said, "Generosity is not infinite, and it is not true generosity if it comes from a place of resentment." Remember, their lack of gratitude says more about them than it does about you. As psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself as I am, then I can change." So the next time you find yourself facing an ungrateful person, take a deep breath, remember your own value, and ask yourself, is this person worth my energy? If the answer is no, it's okay to take a step back. You are not being selfish, you are practicing self-care. And if you decide to continue helping, do it because you genuinely want to, not because you expect recognition. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant said, Act in such a way that you use humanity, both in your person and in the person of anyone else, always at the same time as an end, never simply as a means. Let's move on to the second type of person we shouldn't help: the lazy. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an allergy to exertion? Those people who always have an excuse to do nothing, as if the couch were their natural habitat and the remote control was an extension of their hand. Welcome to the fascinating world of sloths, those masters of the art of doing nothing who teach us valuable lessons about productivity or lack thereof. Imagine you're in a work meeting and you hear someone say, "I couldn't finish the report because my cat ate my motivation." Yes, you guessed it, it's the professional sloth in action. But why do some people seem to have a PhD in procrastination? Science has some interesting answers. According to a study by the University of Calgary, laziness could actually be an evolutionary strategy to conserve energy. It's as if our caveman ancestors had bequeathed us the battery-saving mode gene. But in today's world, where we don't need to save energy to escape predators, this strategy can become counterproductive. Psychologist William James once said, "Nothing is so tiring as the eternal days of an incomplete task." And boy, was he right. Procrastination not only affects our productivity, but also our mental health. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people who regularly procrastinate have higher levels of stress and poorer overall health. But all is not lost for our lazy friends. As famous physicist Albert Einstein once said, "Laziness is the mother of all inventions." And while she probably said it while looking for an excuse not to comb her hair, she has a point. Sometimes the need to avoid work can lead to creative and innovative solutions. Now, how do we identify a chronic lazy person? Here are some warning signs. 1. The king of excuses. These individuals have more excuses than a cat has lives. "I couldn't exercise because my plant needed me to sing to it to grow" is just the tip of the iceberg. 2. The "I'll do it tomorrow" expert. For them, tomorrow is a magical place where all the pending work accumulates. Spoiler alert, that morning never comes. 3. Leisure multitasking. They can watch Netflix, scroll through Instagram, and complain about their work all at the same time. If they put that energy into being productive, they probably would have solved global warming by now. 4. The shortcut finder. They are always looking for the easiest way to do things. If there was an app to breathe for you, they would be the first to download it. 5. The 5 more minutes. For them, the alarm clock is just a friendly suggestion. Just 5 more minutes, they say. And before they know it, an hour has passed. Now, we're not saying you should cut ties with every person who prefers a nap to a gym session, but remember, by surrounding ourselves with lazy people, we run the risk of turning our sore thumb into a lazy hand. As Jim Rohn, entrepreneur and motivational author, said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So choose your company wisely, because you could end up being the only tooth in a mouthful of motivational cavities. Now let's move on to the third type of person, the irresponsible. Have you ever met someone who seems to live in a world without consequences? Welcome to the fascinating universe of the irresponsible. Those experts in evading commitments and blaming everything and everyone except themselves. Imagine that you are on a boat. Suddenly you notice that there is a hole in the hull and water starts to enter. As you and the rest of the crew desperately try to plug the hole and bail out the water, you see someone sitting calmly on the deck sunbathing and saying, "It's not my problem, I didn't make the hole." That, my friends, is the irresponsible one in his natural habitat. When we try to help someone with this pattern of behavior, we often find ourselves in a frustrating cycle. No matter how hard we try to support them, our help rarely results in meaningful progress. The irresponsible person avoids responsibility and has an almost Olympian ability to blame others for their own failures. If something goes wrong, even if it is completely beyond our control, we can end up being blamed. Not only is this unfair, but it can also take a considerable emotional and reputational toll on those trying to help. Therefore, it is essential to take a careful approach when dealing with people who behave in this way. How to do it? An effective strategy is to invite them to reflect on their actions and the consequences they have. Instead of solving their problems for them, we can guide them to develop self-assessment and self-management skills. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson has shown that the brain is incredibly plastic, capable of changing and adapting even into adulthood. So there is hope, although they may need a little push, or perhaps an elephant-sized push. As Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." In this context, education includes not only academic knowledge, but also the ability to take responsibility and learn from mistakes. Ultimately, dealing with irresponsible people is an exercise in patience and self-control. As the philosopher Bertrand Russell said, "Most of the world's difficulties are due to the ignorant being completely sure and the intelligent being full of doubts." So the next time you find yourself dealing with a chronically irresponsible person, take a deep breath and remember, at least you have the intelligence to doubt whether you should continue helping them. In short, while helping others is noble, there is a limit, and that limit usually begins when the other person uses your kindness as a pillow for their laziness. So instead of getting frustrated, consider this an opportunity to practice the art of the kind, but firm no. After all, sometimes the best way to help someone is by not helping them at all. Before moving on to the fourth type of person, if you are liking the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with the bell so you don't miss future videos. And if you enjoy this type of content as much as I do, comment, "I love wisdom." Let's continue learning together and improving our lives. Number 4. The Manipulators. This group presents a unique challenge as they are true artists in the art of manipulating the goodwill of others. They take advantage of sincere attempts to help to satisfy their own interests without any spirit of reciprocity or genuine intention to improve. Imagine that you are in a game of chess, but your opponent has the mysterious ability to move your pieces without you noticing. This is what it feels like to fall into the clutches of a skilled manipulator. But don't worry, today we are going to learn to recognize their tricks and defend ourselves against their tricks. Why do some people seem to have a PhD in manipulation? Psychology has some interesting answers. According to a study conducted by Stanford University, people with narcissistic and Machiavellian traits tend to be more likely to manipulate others. It's as if they have an internal GPS programmed to find the shortest path to their own interests, no matter who they have to step on in the process. Now, we're not saying you should put on a tinfoil hat and distrust everyone, but it is important to develop a radar to spot these emotional pirates. As famous psychologist Robert Cialdini once said, "The best defense against manipulation is knowledge." Think of your emotional well-being as a strength. Manipulators are like invaders trying to infiltrate your defenses. If you don't have a good security system before you know it, they'll be sitting in your living room, eating your nachos, and controlling the remote control of your life. So how do we identify a professional manipulator? Here are some warning signs. 1. The emotional chameleon. They change their personality faster than a teenager changes their mood. With each person they are different, adapting to what they think the other wants to see. 2. The gaslighting expert. They make you doubt your own perception of reality. Are you sure that's how it happened? I think your memory is playing tricks on you. 3. The self-esteem sniper. They make seemingly innocent comments that undermine your confidence. "Oh, are you going to wear that? Well, I guess if you're comfortable." Now let's go to the fifth type of person, chronic critics. These people have an infallible radar to find fault in any situation or person. From your choice of clothing to the way you organize your schedule, they will always have something to criticize. Identifying them can be as easy as listening to their conversations. Their comments are often negative and destructive rather than constructive. If so, you could be dealing with a chronic critic. Now, dealing with them can be like navigating an emotional minefield. No matter how well-intentioned your efforts are, they will always find a way to take you down with their razor-sharp criticism. But why are they like this? Studies suggest that chronic critics often use criticism as a way to establish power or control over others, or even as a way to project their own insecurities. It's like they have special glasses that only allow them to see the flaws in everything. To counteract its negative impact, it is essential to maintain a balanced perspective. Don't take their criticism personally. They often say more about them than about you. Try to divert the conversation towards positive aspects or constructive solutions. Sometimes a simple change of subject can be the best defense against their verbal barbs. Remember, constructive criticism can be helpful for personal growth, but chronic criticism simply erodes self-esteem and undermines confidence. By setting clear boundaries and maintaining a positive attitude, you can protect yourself from their negative influence while fostering a more positive and constructive environment around you. Number 6. The Narcissists. Have you ever come across someone who seems to have a mirror instead of a soul? Welcome to the fascinating world of narcissists, those beings who have elevated self-love to an Olympic level. Imagine trying to fill the Grand Canyon with a glass of water. That's how futile it can be to try to satisfy a narcissist's ego. But don't worry, you are not alone in this journey. According to a study from Indiana University, approximately 6% of the population has significant narcissistic traits. That means you probably meet one or two in your daily life. But how do we identify these number one fans of themselves? Well, if you've ever met someone who believes that the sun rises only to illuminate their face, you're probably looking at a narcissist. These individuals have an impressive ability to turn any conversation into a monologue about their achievements, no matter how insignificant. Now, dealing with a narcissist can be more exhausting than trying to teach a cat to bark. But don't despair. There are strategies you can use. Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Reinventing Narcissism, suggests setting clear boundaries. It's not about changing the narcissist, Malkin says, but about changing how you interact with them. An effective tactic is what psychologists call selective validation. Basically, it's like training a dog. You reinforce the positive behavior and ignore the negative. When the narcissist shows a hint of empathy, yes, it happens sometimes, acknowledge it. But when he starts his usual self-aggrandizement session, don't play along. Remember, you are not required to be the captive audience of his one-man show. As actress Bette Midler once said, the ego is a voracious octopus that feeds on your life. Don't let the narcissist in your life be that octopus, but be careful, let's not confuse healthy confidence with narcissism. The difference lies in the capacity for empathy and the constant need for admiration. While a confident person may take genuine joy in the successes of others, a narcissist will see those successes as a threat to their own greatness. In short, dealing with a narcissist can be a challenge, but also an opportunity to strengthen your patience and compassion. And who knows, maybe you'll even learn something. After all, as Oscar Wilde said, to know yourself, observe the behavior of others. Number 7. The Advantaged. Imagine coming across someone who always seems to be on the prowl, looking for any opportunity to get something at the expense of others, regardless of the consequences. This is the freeloader, an individual who has mastered the art of taking advantage of the generosity or resources of others without offering anything in return other than their own convenience. They may appear charming and friendly, but behind that facade lies an opportunistic attitude that can undermine trust in any relationship. Now, let's not confuse a freeloader with someone who genuinely needs help. The difference is in the pattern of behavior and reciprocity. As psychologist Harriet Breaker once said, freeloaders are experts at making you feel guilty when you don't meet their expectations. Detecting a freeloader can be difficult, as they often hide their true intentions behind a collaborative appearance. A key sign is a lack of reciprocity. They always receive help, but rarely return favors or collaborate equally. They use subtle manipulations such as flattery or vague promises to get what they want without actually committing to contribute. They are always present when there are benefits, but disappear when effort or sacrifice is required on your part. Dealing with a freeloader involves setting clear boundaries and being aware of your own personal resources and limits. It's crucial to set clear expectations from the beginning about what you're willing to offer and what you expect in return. Encouraging reciprocity is also key. It encourages the freeloader to contribute equally to relationships, whether by dividing responsibilities or defining roles and expectations transparently. From a psychological perspective, freeloaders reflect a combination of low empathy and high opportunism. Studies on human behavior indicate that certain personalities are more likely to engage in manipulative behaviors to satisfy their own interests without considering the impact on others. By understanding how to identify and manage freeloaders, you can protect your emotional integrity and maintain healthier, more equitable relationships. It is true that giving and receiving is essential in any healthy relationship, but when you realize that you are constantly giving and receiving nothing in return, it is time to reconsider the situation. Investing energy and effort in people who do not value or appreciate your contribution can be exhausting and emotionally draining. Sometimes it is better to channel that energy into more equitable and rewarding relationships, where your actions are moo. Let's now go to our eighth and last type of people we should not help, the envious. Imagine that you just won the lottery. Who would you tell first? Before you start making a mental list, let me share a fun fact with you. According to a study conducted by Harvard University, 70% of lottery winners experience a deterioration in their personal relationships after their victory. The main reason? Envy. But you don't need to make millions to experience the corrosive effects of envy. From that promotion at work to that new relationship that has you on cloud nine, haters are lurking, ready to launch their poisonous darts of disapproval and resentment. Now, what makes some people more prone to envy? Psychologist Sarah Pratasi, in her book The Philosophy of Envy, suggests that envy arises when we perceive a gap between what we have and what we think we deserve. It's like we have an internal cosmic justice counter that goes crazy when someone else gets something we think should be ours. But here's the interesting thing. Envy is not necessarily bad. In fact, it can be a powerful motivator. As famous inventor Thomas Edison once said, "To invent, you need a good imagination and a lot of junk. Replace trash with envy, and you have a recipe for success or disaster, depending on how you handle it." The key is how we respond to envy, both our own and that of others. And this is where one of the most counterintuitive and effective tips comes into play. Keep your successes and plans a secret. Yes, you heard right. In an age where it seems like if you don't share it on social media, it hasn't happened, I'm suggesting you do the exact opposite. Because, well, let me tell you a secret, irony intended. When you share your plans ahead of time, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that is released when you reach the actual goal. This can lead you to feel a false sense of accomplishment, reducing your motivation to keep going. I'm not saying it, science says it. A study published in the journal Psychological Science found that people who kept their goals secret were 70% more likely to achieve them than those who shared them widely. It's like the universe has a twisted sense of humor. The more you talk about your dreams, the less likely they are to come true. But there is more. When you share your plans, you are not only dealing with your own psychology, but also that of others, and this is where our friends, the haters, come into the picture. As writer Gore Vidal once said, "Every time a friend succeeds, I die a little. Now multiply that by each person you tell your plans to, and you'll have an idea of how much negative energy you might be attracting without realizing it. Then what do? Do we become hermits and keep all our achievements to ourselves? Not quite. The key is to be selective. As entrepreneur Richard Branson once said, "Trust your instincts. Be selective with whom you share your dreams." Think of your dreams and plans as if they were a secret recipe. You don't give it to just anyone, right? Only to those people you fully trust, those who you know will not only not reveal it, but will also help you improve it. And here comes the trick. When you finally decide to share your plans or successes, do so in a way that inspires rather than provokes envy. Instead of saying, "I just got an amazing promotion," try, "I'm excited about this new challenge at work." The difference may seem subtle, but the impact on how others perceive your news can be huge. Now let's return for a moment to our envious friends. How do we identify them? Well, here are some warning signs. 1. The difficult praiser. Their congratulations sound more forced than a bon appetit at a vegan dinner. 2. The professional minimizer. No matter how great your achievement is, to them it will always be luck or no big deal. 3. The compulsive competitor. Your success is just an excuse for them to tell you how they did it better, faster, or cheaper. 4. The covert saboteur. They encourage you in public, but in private, they do everything they can to derail your plans. 5. The information collector. They always want to know more details, not out of genuine interest, but to find faults or copy you. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to protecting yourself. The second is to develop what I call an oyster mentality. Do you know how oysters produce pearls? Taking an irritant and turning it into something beautiful. In the same way, you can take the envy of others and use it as motivation to continue growing and improving. Remember, your value is not diminished by the achievements of others, nor increased by their failures. As writer Mark Twain once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Focus on your own path, your own goals, and your own growth. Remember, envy is often a reflection of the insecurity of others. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." So the next time you feel someone's envious gaze, smile. Not because you enjoy their discomfort, but because you have found a sign that you are on the right path. In short, be selective with whom you share your successes and plans. It's not about being selfish or arrogant. It's about protecting your energy, maintaining your motivation, and yes, also protecting yourself from toxic envy. As philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "Don't worry about what other people think. They care a lot less than you imagine." So the next time you have big news or an exciting plan, take a deep breath, smile to yourself, and treasure it. Share it only with those you know will genuinely be happy for you. And remember, the best success is the one that doesn't need to be announced. Let your achievements speak for themselves, after all. Actions always speak louder than words and definitely attract less envy. If you've made it this far, be sure to leave your mark below in the comments by writing "calm mind." Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with those who may find it useful and consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. I leave you the link in the posted comment so you can take a look. Thank you for your continued support. A big hug, and until next time.